Now, what I'm talking about with self-defense fantasy is this. You hear a lot of guys who teach self-defense or so-called reality-based self-defense, and they put out a lot of information. Some of it's relevant, some of it's not, some of it's just complete bullshit. When it comes to reality-based self-defense, there's only a few guys out there that actually know what they're talking about. Tony Blauer, Jim Grover, but I'm going to digress here. I'm going to get to what I'm pointing at. Now, one of the first lies they try to teach you in self-defense is the idea of stranger rape or stranger assault. No. In most cases, most women who are raped by a lover, ex-lover, or a family member. This is a person who has known them for years and who they've dropped their guard around. So the idea of teaching this crazy little concept of stranger rape doesn't necessarily stick, because it's not something in a high probability of what will happen. In almost every single case recorded by the FBI statistics labs, it's almost always a friend, a lover, an ex-lover, or a family member. And the fear of, oh my god, I'm going to be raped because this guy looks dangerous, or this guy that he's not dressed the way I'm expecting, you know, he looks like the kid from the wrong side of the tracks, and he came up and tried to talk to me, oh my god, he might try to rape me. That's just catering to a fear and a paranoia that most women have, because they pretty much grow up with the idea that they will be a target for rape at some point in times in their lives. And there's a lot of political reasons for this, and there's a lot of safety reasons for this, because a lot of mothers do teach this to their kids, because that's the greatest fear that you can have as a parent, I guess, that, you know, your daughter would be raped by some guy. So you try to teach them to be able to know the warning signs and to look out for stuff like that. But the thing about it is, oftentimes it's not a stranger that does it, it's someone that they're comfortable with. So the idea of teaching, oh, this stranger rape, and the same thing applies to assault. Most people who get their stuff stolen, who get mugged, beat down, or whatever, it's usually by someone who knows them, not necessarily a friend, but someone who actually knows them. Think of it like this. When you were in high school and you got bullied, were you bullied by the bully who didn't know who the hell you were, or the bully who knew who you were, who bullied you every day? When the kid came up and stole your lunch money, did he do this every day because he knew you and he knew that you were weak and scared of him, or that did he go after people he just randomly didn't know? It doesn't happen that way. Now, that aside, you also have the big myth that anyone can defend themselves. Well, that's partially true. Anyone can attempt to defend themselves. Attempting to defend yourself and successfully defending yourself are two completely different things. And then there's the one that I'm ever so popularly fond of that I think is a fucking joke. Well, I plan to cheat when I fight. Well, here's the problem. Muggers are cheating when they fight you. The people who attack you are cheating when they fight you. They're not conducting sportsmanlike conduct of picking on someone their own size, or attacking someone in a straight, even-out fight. This isn't some kind of spaghetti western where somebody's going to walk out and say, meet me at high noon, we're going to draw guns on each other. It doesn't happen that way. Most likely, the three biggest tactics used by criminals is the ambush tactic, the gang tactic, and the I'm armed tactic, and sometimes there's a combination of all three. Now, each one of them focuses on a specific strength for the aggressor. The ambush tactic allows them to attack you from surprise. The armed tactic allows them to threaten you and intimidate you with a weapon. Whether or not they intend on using that weapon is somewhat debatable. If they're scared of you and they have a weapon, then your best bet is to run away. Chances are they won't pull the trigger, but if you rush them, there's a good chance, since they're scared, they will pull the trigger. If they're doing it and they don't really seem all that scared, you have a slightly good chance of rushing them, depending on the type of weapon. And if they really intend to shoot you, they're going to shoot you from the get-go, and there's going to be no defense against that, except for maybe a bulletproof vest and shooting back. It requires a great deal of preparation. Also, you have to think about this. There's a lot of people who holler, well, I'm going to be armed. Okay, well, let's deal with being armed for a moment. First of all, if you have a gun and the other guy has a gun and he pulls the gun on you first and says, give me your wallet, and you go for your gun, you're going to get shot. Because in the time it takes you to reach for your concealed weapon, that person's going to shoot you. That's all it takes is a quick pull the trigger. They may or may not actually kill you. There's only like, I think, 15-20% of the body which actually produces lethal injury when struck. And the only way to instantly kill a person is to hit the central nervous system or the heart. Now, that being said, you have this whole big myth that criminals aren't trained. And everybody points to the crackhead down the street and the usual addicts or whatever. You have to realize there's tiers. There's levels of different types of criminals out there. And yes, you have gang members who are addicts and everything else, and they pretty much just exist for cannon fodder. You have to understand that most gangs operate within almost a paramilitary rank structure. You have the gang's leader, the head of the gang, then you have the shot callers below them, or you have the gang's head, you have the lieutenant or lieutenants, you have shot callers underneath them, and then you have the basic little soldiers, and then the wannabes under the little soldiers. So you have this giant ass pyramid scheme. And what happens, oddly, sadly enough, is that some of these gangs will take the little wannabes who don't have tattoos or no criminal records, and they'll say, hey, go join the military. So these guys go join the military, get experience in the military, come back and teach it to the gangs. Sometimes they do the same thing with martial arts and stuff like that. And let me point something out here. The Black Guerrilla Family, which is a militant black separationist gang, which is all about the extreme of black power as to going out and killing white people and stuff. They actually created their own little martial arts system called Jailhouse Rock to give their guys a basic little paramilitary system and basic hand-to-hand unarmed fighting techniques and shanking methods, knife stabs and stuff like that. So what happens is they have that training, and these guys who learn this stuff are like, yeah, well, we've learned like the basics of little paramilitary stuff, and we're going to learn tactics and everything else, and they give them that sense of being in a paramilitary organization. And the Aryan Brotherhood did the same thing with rock and roll. Now, so to say that criminals aren't trained isn't true, and most criminals go through a phase of different levels. They start off as the bully, or usually they start off as the victim of a bigger, stronger criminal or criminal type, and then they become the bully, and then they go on into different little levels of getting up there. And eventually they can stop at any point, they can deviate from it at any point. Some of them don't go all the way into being violent serial killer, mad dog types. Some do. And the problem is, depending on where you go within that little line or that little line of progression, that you face certain guys who have a great deal of experience, and remember, experience doubles as training, because these guys have experience. It's not that they've trained to knock over, or they've had, they've ran a course on robbing a liquor store. It's that they've robbed 12, 15, 20 liquor stores, and they know how to do it every single time. And then they transition out to maybe, I don't know, robbing a bank or robbing your home or something else. So you have to realize experience is the purpose of training. The purpose of training is to simulate experience, to give you an idea, a repetition, to condition your pattern of behavior. It's a form of behavioral conditioning, if you will. Now, then you also have this whole thing that doesn't take a lot of training to learn self-defense. Well, that's relatively true and not. Anyone can poke you in the eyes or kick you in the nuts, whoopity-doo. The thing about it is, unless you actually train to use these techniques on a regular basis, you're not going to. A boxer might throw a closed fist on reflex when he's suddenly startled, because he's been conditioned through a pattern of association that when he jabs, it's going to be a closed fist. You might have done so, doing so with your fingers as a straight finger jab. The difference is that boxer has more experience at throwing a closed fist on reflex and has conditioned his pattern of behavior to throw that closed fist on reflex than you have in a 40-hour class.